in the upstairs bedroom. Where? In the state of Maine, the United States of America. Where in the state of Maine? Presque Isle. 18 miles from the Canadian border on Route 2A, straight north, Caribou, Van Buren, the Canadian border. And in those days, the babies were born at home and the doctors came to the homes to deliver the babies. And our doctor's name was a great name for a doctor. Dr. Graves. I kid you not. Dr. Graves. And Dr. Graves had a son who became Dr. Graves, and a grandson who became Dr. Graves, and a great-great-grandson who became Dr. Graves, Graves. And it was potato country, folks. The potato farms were all around. They were even close to downtown. There were so many potato farms. You could walk downtown in, maybe 10 minutes. And there was an ice house. And do you know, folks, that people would put blocks of ice that they had cut from the lake in the wintertime. They were about this long, about this wide, and this cube. And you know what they did? They had sawdust in that ice house. The sawdust was filled with ice house. And they would put down a layer of block of ice and sawdust, and a layer of block of ice and sawdust. And that's all that we had for our refrigerator. There were no electric refrigerators. They were wooden refrigerators. And you put the block of ice in there, and it would last maybe 2 or 3 days. It was not an easy life. And I was there through first grade and second grade and some of third grade. But there was no kindergarten. Why? Because Presque Isle didn't have any money to have kindergartens. Kindergartens were a luxury. That was big city stuff. I remember a peony bush, and I remember ants crawling on the peony buds for the sugar. And we had banking boards. You know what a banking board is? It's a board that's maybe 6 feet long and maybe 3 feet wide and made of plywood. And you would put this banking board up against the foundation of the house. This is the banking board, this is the foundation of the house. And you want to know why? Because the snow would come down in the wintertime and rest on top of that banking board and keep the foundation of the house warm. Wasn't that credit? Wasn't that smart? And sure, we made snowmen. The snow was plentiful. But we did better than that. We made snow houses. We would take a big pile of snow, 8 foot tall, and maybe 10 foot in circumference. And we would make a snow house. You'd cut the door down like this, and then you'd start shoveling. Take out some here, take out some more from the inside, until you had it all hollow inside. And you had a snow house. You never heard of such a thing, did you? And not only that, we had snow tunnels. We would have a snow tunnel running from this snow house to this snow house. And when I would walk to school down the road, that snowbank, I was just, 6 years old, 7 years old, and that snowbank was about 10 feet high on both sides of the road, except where the driveways were. You see, when it snowed down Maine, every snowstorm you had to shovel just a little bit higher because it didn't melt. It did not melt between snow melt. between snowstorms, it did not melt. And so each snowstorm you have to shovel a little higher. What else was I going to tell you?
1 year after you were born, the stock market crashed?
Oh, thank you, friend, for being a prompter. Yes, I was born on May 1st, 1928, and a year later came the stock market crash, October of 1929. And my daddy was a barber, but a very successful barber, and he had a chain of barber shops around Aroostook County. And he was doing quite well. And then my mother and my father went to the bank to get their money. The bank was closed. They never got their money. Can you imagine such a thing happening? You go to the bank to get your money, and the bank has spent your money? That was a crash. And after that, my daddy couldn't even find a job as a barber. After being the owner of barber shops, he couldn't find a job as a barber.
So
what else was I going to tell them?
Homemade clothes and home cooking?
Yes. We were poor. That was the beginning of the poverty. That was the beginning of the Depression. And all of our clothes had to be homemade. And we would wear a dress. Say we would wear a dress maybe one winter, but the next winter we would tear the dress all apart and make it into a new style. It was the same cloth, 98 cents a yard, but we would make it into a different style dress. And we had fertilizer sheds all over. And we had that green chemical, Paris green, that they put on the potatoes. And the schools would open, folks, in August. Why? So people could go pick potatoes in September when the potatoes were ripe. The schools would open in August, and we would go to school for 3 weeks, we'd say. Then we'd all go to, when the potatoes were ripe, then we would all go and pick potatoes for the market. And then after the potatoes were harvested, we'd go resume school. And my sister went to what they call normal school. That was teacher school. Normal school. Aroostook State Normal School, which is now, of course, the campus of the University of Maine. And she was playing in gymnasium, and a splinter off of the floor in the gymnasium went into the bottom of her foot. And they couldn't get it out. They could not get it out. And it festered, and it was sore, and it was full of pus, and it was red, and it was inflamed. And she was lying on the porch floor, sitting on the porch floor with her back up against the wall, and her foot was extended. And somebody came running into the porch and stepped on her foot. And that splinter just jumped out of it. It just shot right out of her foot. And she got well right after that. We used to have sand pits. In those days, if they wanted sand, all they did was take off the top surf and dig in and get the dirt, and they used the dirt for all kinds of things, all kinds of building. And so you had a sand pit, and a truck would come and get a load of sand, and then another truck would come and get a load of sand. Well, we used to go to those sand pits, and we would build towns. We had a shingle, and we would scrape up the dirt and pack it all together and slant the roofs. And then we had driveways, and we had garages, and we had houses, and we had sheds. And we would build up a whole town. The next day it would all be gone, of course, because of the rain. or because the sand truck came or something. What else, dear?
County fair?
Yeah, we had a county fair once a year. And I remember one year they sold putt-putt boats. And I don't know what they had in them to make it go, but you would light the putt-putt boat with a match, and that burned fuel somehow so that the putt-putt boat would go all around the bathtub. And we had ice cream sandwiches. Do you remember those? Chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry in a roll, a vanilla roll, strawberry and chocolate, and the cake on the bottom and the cake on the top. Remember that? They came only with the fair.
May Basket Day?
May Basket. Glennie was born on May Day, May Basket. And in those years, 1920, 1930, May baskets were a big thing. And what the kids used to do was to make their May baskets with paper. And you worked with the paper, and those May baskets were beautiful. Oh, they were so beautiful. And then you'd put a little bit of candy in the bottom. And then you would go with your May basket, and you'd run to the house that you wanted to, and you would ring the doorbell, you would hang your basket on the doorknob, and then you'd run away. And the trick was that they didn't know whom that particular May basket belonged.
License plates?
I remember a man across the street, Hawksley. His name was Hawksley. And in his barn, it was a garage, but down there, it was more a barn than a garage. And on the walls, he had all the license plates from every year in the state of Maine. And they were all different colors. And it was very impressive to see 30 or 40 license plates all on the wall. And an Essex car. Do you remember the Essex car? Do you remember running boards? We had running boards. The car would go, and then we would run and jump on the running board and hang onto the door jamb. And what's Essex cars had wooden steering wheels? The steering wheels were wooden.
And Sears Roebuck catalog?
What was that, honey?
Sears Roebuck catalog?
It was, everybody had a Sears Roebuck catalog. Thank you. And we take that catalog, and we take a page, and we would turn down the page this way, diagonally, and then we'd fold it over this way. And we do that with every page in the Sears Roebuck catalog, and we ended up with a catalog this round, and it made a great doorstop, a great doorstop. And of course, it was a grand thing when you got a package from Sears Roebuck. It was like Christmas. Oh boy. And you didn't get very many because you couldn't afford things like that. And Nissan Bacon used to come around. And he carried a box that had a handle. And he carried these cream puffs and chocolate eclairs. Oh, and my mother couldn't afford many of them, but she would buy 2 or 3 when he came to the house. He would go door to door with those.
Teddy Bear in Red Wagon?
6 years old. And we were all sitting around at the table, the supper table. My dad, my mother, my sister Helene, who was 13 years older than I was, and my brother Ralph Arnold Folsom Jr., who was 9 years older than I was, and my brother Gordon, who was 4 years older than I was, and I was the spoiled baby of the family. And we were sitting around the dinner table, and we were all made to finish our dinner and clean up our plates. And then my brother Ralph came in from the living room with a red wagon and a great big teddy bear in it. As poor as we were, they managed to get me a birthday present. Happy birthday, Glennie.
Piano?
What, dear?
Piano?
Oh, piano. We had a piano. Everybody seemed to have a piano, an upright. And Helene played the piano and sang. And we would gather around the piano and sing songs. We had some wooden blocks. I didn't have a whole alphabet. There were maybe 10 or 12 blocks missing. And I used to try to spell things with those blocks. But they were so many missing blocks, I couldn't spell them. But I remember that I didn't have a W, but I could turn the M upside down and it would look like a W. And I remember there were old magazines, and I would go through a magazine that was really an adult, a grown-up magazine, like Cosmopolitan, and I would look for a picture that had the Campbell twins on it, the Campbell kids on it. To me, that was a whole magazine, was to find that picture and cut it out. Anything else, dear?
Christmas pageant.
Yes, the Methodist Church had a Christmas pageant. And we sang, "We three kings of Orient are bearing gifts, we travel so far." And my brother Gordon was in the Christmas pageant, and we all went to church to see it. He didn't have a speaking part. Anything else, hon?
Mrs. Cogswell is the last
Oh,
item.
Mrs. Cogswell. She lived in the house up the next lot up. And she saw me playing all by myself outdoors. And she asked me if I wanted to come in and have a cookie. And it was one of her sugar cookies. You've never seen a sugar cookie like that. Big, round, and flat with sugar sprinkled over the top. So tasty. Full of vanilla and butter. And then the neighbors to the other side, we looked down on them because it was a tenement house. They didn't have their own house. They had to live in another house with other people. Do you think we covered it all, dear?
That's everything on the list.
Thank you so much for your help.
You're welcome. Ready to end it?
Well, let me give you a plan, folks. I was going to do the first 10 years. But I think I'll just stop here. At grade 2, 8 years old, and tell you the next big thing that happened. It's unbelievable what happened. Unbelievable what happened.
You want me to stop it now? Am I stopping it now? Glendora, am I stopping it now?
Well, honey, you ruined it. That's on the video. Am I stopping it now?
That can be cut off if it's the end.
You can cut it off?
I can't, but whoever edits this for you can, so I'm stopping it now, okay?
How can the person who edited